I've used 5 top property investment tips to build my business from owning no home and a student loan right through to a multi-million pound business. In this video, I'm going to share with you those tips so you can get going on your own property investment and development journey. Hi, I'm Nicholas Wallwork, author of Investing in International Real Estate for Dummies, for the famous 4 Dummies self-help guides. Now, it's taken me well over 20 years to get where I am in the property world. Now, I'm not saying that you can't fast track that with good training and good mentorships, you can. However, it's blooming hard work. There's no getting away from it. Forget the get-rich-quick schemes out there. Forget the financial freedom within 5 minutes. Property investing, developing is blooming hard work. So even with over 20 years experience, I'm still making the odd mistake, even with an exceptional team around me, but it's continual learning and education. It's feeding that back into the product. It's not easy, it's hard work. You need a huge amount of knowledge. So don't expect to just be able to turn up to a development site, buy a site and make money. I've worked with numerous clients that have been out there. They've bought sites and realized it's not even viable to build them, unfortunately. And we then try and unwind a potential site. Now, everything from financing the site, from developing it, the construction phase, the tendering phase, the planning phase, all of these have their own risks and potentially their own nice rewards. So I don't want to paint a picture that is all doom and gloom. There are huge rewards to be had for those that are driven, passionate and persistent in pursuing their property investment and development journey. Sit in that one, yeah. Here are my 5 top property investment and development tips. My first top tip is commercial to residential conversions. If you follow this channel, you will know that I've done a few of these and they've been a staple part of my property development career for some time. It's been particularly interesting in the last 5 or 6 years as the permitted development rights have been brought in to ease the planning process for these kind of conversions. Since 2008, gradually less and less office space has been needed, especially in the older style of buildings where grade A offices and purpose-built offices have possibly taken over the stock for offices and left some of the older stock more redundant and ripe for conversion. Now, this kind of conversion can often be quite straightforward. It could be a shop with upper floors that you would convert to flats. Possibly out the back of the shop there could be room for another flat or 2, and indeed you could extend those buildings sometimes across the roof in more built up areas. In London that's done quite extensively. Now, commercial to residential conversions are proper development. Sometimes these buildings can throw up tricks and problems for you and issues, and you've got to overcome those. So unlike a new build, which generally once you've done a land survey or contamination survey are relatively risk-free once you're out of the ground, with the commercial conversions they can throw stuff at you all along the way. It could be fireproofing, it could be cladding, it could be acoustics, noise, windows, all these kind of things can give you a few issues. But the good news is with the right team and the right people around you, they are relatively easy to deliver. You've obviously got the fabric of the building there. There's a limited amount of risk coming out of the ground. You're already out of the ground. So a lot of it's just internal refurbishment and building. So that might be partition walls and segmenting the building into various flats. Now, commercial conversions can get you an excellent return. We've done certain conversions that have had well over 100% return on investment. Now that goes against the grain and the norm, but you can expect comfortably a 20, maybe a 30% return on most of your deals if you source well, buy at the right price and convert at the right costs. There are challenges with build costs, there are challenges with labour, but again, having the right project management team, the right QSs, and the right construction element to your portfolio team, the better you're going to be able to overcome those problems, pool the resources and get the job done. My second top tip is HMOs, that's houses in multiple occupation. Now these are house shares or flat shares where a group of either students or young professionals, potentially even a DSS model where people are on housing benefits, will share one house with communal facilities like washrooms and kitchens. Often all the bedrooms could be en suite. Now this is a great strategy where you might have a normal buy-to-let house that you convert into a 4, 5, 6 bed house share. Now there is extra licensing required, and provided you're not in what's called an Article 4 direction area, which removes permitted development rights, you can convert a normal house under the C3 planning class into a C4 small HMO, which is up to 6 bedrooms. And that conversion will just include things like fire doors, fire alarms, some extra electrical checks, intrumescent strips, which are the fire strips around the doors, door self-closers, fire blankets, and a few other safety features than just those named. And then you've suddenly got yourself an HMO, which is extremely high yielding. imagine you're getting £1,000 a month for your detached 4-bed house with a couple of reception rooms. You could well end up with 6 tenants paying £600 or £700 a month. So you can see the difference. Although you pay the bills on the HMO, the difference is quite a bit. You know, you can sometimes double or triple your income on a particular house, or triple your profit doing the HMO strategy. So that is a fantastic tip for those investors out there that might already have properties that are suitable for a quick refurbishment into an HMO, or indeed those looking to get into property investing, going straight to the high yielding strategy from day one to explode your property investment portfolio. Now, my third top tip is mega HMOs. Now, these are HMOs, in my view, my terminology for here is 6 bedrooms or above. And those would usually fall into the sui generis planning class. So you have a single dwelling property, which is a C3 class. A small HMO up to 6 bedrooms is a C4 class. And the sui generis is kind of a catch-all for things like a mega HMO, which might be 8 to 10 to 20 to 30 rooms. We've had some pretty big sites before that have had, I think, 28 rooms we had in one, which was a hotel conversion back to a large sui generis HMO. Now, these obviously are not only buy-to-let on steroids, but they're HMOs on steroids. You can imagine the price of the building is going to be high because it's going to be a bigger building, it's going to be a larger building. It might have been a guest house or a hotel or a hostel or an Airbnb property. It could have been an old school building or a town hall or something that's maybe, you know, a bit larger, possibly commercial in nature, that, you know, you would definitely require planning to go to the sui generis use because it was not permitted development in any way. So the idea with these buildings is that you might want to sectionalize them. We've done various conversions over the years where we've sectioned off floors and you've got like 5 or 6 flats in one building, and then those 5 flats have been used as HMOs in their own right. We've used that strategy very successfully. Now, don't take the planning for a sui generis HMO lightly. A lot of councils still have a negative vibe around HMOs. And if you go and say, well, I want this 20-bed HMO, they're probably going to fall off the back of their chair and work out how to stop you doing it. Now, the key to that is extremely good planning, picking them in the right areas. If you can find a building that's already been classed as an HMO, well, fantastic. You might be buying it cheap because it's run down, the landlord hasn't kept up with it. So you might be able to take on without any planning risk. But those are, you know, like really finding hen's teeth because everyone wants them. People like me want them, and there are hundreds of others out there watching this video that might go on to want them too. So actually you are going to have to take some planning risk unless you can get a subject to planning offer from a seller. But if you do, these can be life-changing properties. We've had, I'll give you one example. We've got a 12-bed HMO in the centre of Reading, Berkshire. We paid about $400,000 for it. We developed it for about £150,000, and we've got 12 bedrooms in it, all at around about £650 a room. So you can see the numbers are pretty spectacular. That one property earns us over £93,000 a year in gross rental income. Now, even with the mortgage and the bills, there's a significant amount of profit to be had in that one building, and potentially, depending on your income cash requirements, that's a life-changing amount of money, and that is financial freedom in one building. You could retire on that building, and it's life-changing kind of stuff. So these mega HMOs are something to aim for. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it's your first deal. I'd try and get a couple of HMOs under your belt first and learn the regulations, learn the buildings. Like anything in property, you don't want to dive in the deep end, get things wrong, not understand the regs properly and get yourself into trouble, or indeed lose money. You know, that's not good for anyone. So that was my third top tip, mega HMOs that can get you financially free in one purchase. Now, for my fourth tip, we're going to take a little bit of planning risk potentially here, and that is care home conversions. Now, care home conversions can be a great way to get a huge amount of planning gain on a site. We've done a couple of them and they work really, really well. We turn them eventually, usually into this sui generis mega HMO by splitting them up into a number of flats or a number of units, and each of those can be then let out on a room by room basis. Now, the planning, as I've said previously on previous videos and previous segments, shouldn't be taken lightly. You know, it's called planning risk for a reason, because there is a risk. Now, obviously you want to have the right team of people around you. You want to know what you're doing. You want to have the right planning consultants on your team, the right architects and the right building team to go and deliver a project. But on the planning phase, it's critical that you understand the likelihood of getting planning for that building before you buy it. That might not mean full planning. It might not mean a pre-app, which is a cut down kind of, you know, very basic set of plans and a covering letter from your architect to the planning department and possibly a meeting on site. If you can get a pre-app in time before exchange, fantastic. That's what you need to do, because you'll get a member of the council planning department down there with you to tell you what they think. I've had a site before where I've gone on site which actually had a grade 2 listed facade. There was nothing really of significant interest inside other than the windows. And we managed to get a pre-app before exchange. And when I was on site, the heritage officer said to us, I'm going to do everything in my power to stop you turning this building into residential. Can you believe it? That was what we were told in a pre-app meeting. So needless to say, we pulled out of that deal straight away. Didn't waste any more money on due diligence and unfortunately had to move on. Now, gauging the attitude of local councils critical. On one of our care home conversions, we actually called up the local council, having consulted with our planning consultant, and we said, look, we're looking to turn this building from a care home back into residential flats. What do you think? Is that something you guys might have an appetite for? We actually managed to get a conversation with the planner on the phone. God knows how, it's trickier than ever now, but this was a few years ago. And they actually said, we'd effectively bite your arm off to do that. We have got too many older care homes that are too much of a drain on the local council's resources. And actually what they want is new purpose-built care homes coming in, some of the older ones getting put back to residential stock. So actually we'd, by a little bit of chance, found a fantastic building in a fantastic location that the council wanted to get rid of and wanted it back to residential. Now, that one phone call, we immediately put an offer in and got it bought. And so gauging that attitude, that just de-risked it enough for us to say, look, we're happy to take that planning risk now. We still need to put in a full application. It still wasn't complete smooth sailing. You have to put in lots of different reports, lots of different consultants to feed into the preparation of that site planning so that the council know what you want to do, how you're going to do it. But ultimately it gave us enough of an edge over the competition potentially to go and say, look, we're prepared to take that risk, knowing their general attitude to this site. So care home conversions can be extremely lucrative. There is an element of planning risk with them, unless of course you get a subject to planning offer, which if you can do that, well, fantastic. There's very little risk, just the risk of putting the planning application in and the associated work around that. If you can't, try and de-risk it as much as possible with your planning consultant and trying to get a line of communication with the local council. Last but not least, my fifth top tip is serviced accommodation. Now, we've all heard of this. We've all heard of Airbnb and such sites that rent your property on a nightly or maybe a weekly or a weekend basis. Now, serviced accommodation is extremely lucrative. You can use it on either a rent-to-rent strategy, which is where you essentially rent off a landlord and then sublet the rooms on a nightly basis and you manage the property. That's very much a management strategy. But if you've bought the building yourself and you rent it on a nightly or a weekly basis, it can be very lucrative in terms of the rent you get per night can often be 100, 150, 200 pounds a night in a good area, in a good location for a certain type of property. A single let on let's say a bungalow by the sea, it might be £1,000 a month as a residential building. But on a nightly, that could be £200 a night. So you can see there's huge income to be had. My only one word of caution with serviced accommodation is there is more of a business model approach rather than a hands-off property investment strategy. It can be hands-off if you get the right team. Again, it's all about getting the right team, and particularly on this, the management team and cleaning team, people who do the check-ins, check-outs, cleaning of all the laundry, dealing with bookings and customer service. You can see there's a lot more work involved than just running a single buy-to-let or even a small HMO where you'll have the general turnover of tenants, a weekly clean perhaps, and a little bit of maintenance. Airbnb serviced accommodation models can be intensive and a lot of work. So just bear that in mind when you're going with that strategy, but there are huge gains to be had if you're prepared to put the work in. So that was 5 of my top property investment and development tips and tricks that I've used over my career. I've used every one of those strategies to great effect at various points in my career. I still use them to this very day. In the last year, I've done a care home conversion, I've done a commercial to resi conversion, and I bought 3 HMOs at the beginning of the year. So all of that is documented on this channel. So please make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to be notified of future videos. Go back and check out the HMO conversions we did down in Hampshire last year. Go and check out the commercial to residential conversions we've done. We've done the building right behind me, which is a 30,000 square foot conversion for a mentee client of mine. We worked together on this. Now, if you'd like to work with me, I offer mentorships and consultation around property investing and developing. If you'd like to tap into my knowledge and all of my power team immediately to get you going on a bigger site or a different change in strategy, learn a new strategy, get implemented practical advice, please reach out using the details around this video, and I hope to see you on another video very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.